everybody, and welcome to another episode of Three Big Questions. I am your host, Ross Herosian, the founder and CEO of Tricycle Creative. But of course, you knew that already. But here are some things you don't know. I have a fantastic guest on today's show. So fantastic, I can't even book him during the week. He's busy. He's flying around the country. I don't know. I made that part up. It's almost impossible to get a hold of this guy, but I did. And you're going to be like, whoa, so happy that he is here. But I'm not going to tell you who it is. So, oh my God, it's like a radio tease going on there. Before we get into today's guest and before we get into the three big questions, I want to ask you, are you on Instagram? Are you, Instagram? I know people are like, wow, who's not on Instagram at this point? There are people who are not on Instagram yet. There are also people who are on Instagram who don't fully know how to use Instagram, right? This could be for a business. This could be for your personal use. I actually see a lot of parents who are on Instagram because their kids went there and they followed them there, but they have no idea how to use Instagram, right? I also work with clients who almost feel guilty about saying, I don't know exactly how to use Instagram. You don't need to feel guilty about not knowing Instagram. In fact, my mom reached out to me. My mom reached out multiple times in the past several months. Curious. She's curious about Instagram, which I was like, oh, geez, that's, uh-oh. And I kept avoiding it. But then I finally dove in. And the past couple weeks, I actually spent training my mom on how to use Instagram. And when I did that, I built the exact course that I used to train my mom on Instagram. And I am now making it available to everyone. And it's called Instagram 101. So before we get into our three big questions, I again want to ask you, are you on Instagram? Do you know how to use it? And if you don't, then I encourage you to check out this Instagram 101. It's the newest Training Wheels marketing course by Tricycle Creative. It is a whopping $15 and it is 100% online, self-pacing, on demand. And we even have a promo code for you a little bit later in the show. And also down below in the comments or in the text, you can use Weird Homes Tour and save $5, right? So you can now learn Instagram, whether it's for personal or for business, for $10 using Weird Homes Tour as your promo code. Now, that is a real big spoiler to figure out who is my guest today on Three Big Questions. And that guest is the great personal friend, client of Tricycle Creative. He was one of the reasons I moved to Austin. Well, he helped make me feel good about moving to Austin. It is David J. Neff of Weird Homes. What's going on, man?
Hey, everybody.
Howdy.
Thanks for having me, man. I'll have to quiz you on why I helped you move to Austin later.
You were just one of the good people. We talked about this a little bit on the podcast, but I talked to, whenever you move to a place sight unseen, and you reach out, does anyone know anyone that lives there? And you talk to those people. When they're really nice, you're like, oh, okay, that helps. That really helps. So you were one of the nice ones. So
good. Yeah, I'm happy to play unofficial ambassador to Austin. Anyone who's interested. One day when I run for city council,
I'll remember,
just vote for me.
For sure. So why don't we, before we get into our three big questions, why don't you tell the folks at home a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, sure. Hey, everybody. So David J. Neff, at DaveIM on Twitter, and also Weird Homes Tour on Twitter and Instagram and basically any platform you can imagine. But I am the CEO and co-founder of the Weird Homes Tour. And we've been doing that for about 7 years now. And what it is a nationwide arts and kind of architecture tour of some of the strangest places and people that exist in the United States. And we do that in a bunch of different cities. and we take a percentage of all of our profits and actually donate that back to nonprofits that are working around affordable housing, because affordable housing is just a huge problem and thing people should be helping and concerned about all across the United States, as I'm sure a lot of you have experienced yourselves. So that's the Weird Homes Tour.
Yeah, it's it can be found online. We're gonna obviously, I have some of the information down below, but there'll be some ways you can connect with David later on in the show for sure. So now that you know a little bit about him, I think that's as perfect a time, if you will, to jump right in to the first big question.
Let's do it.
All right. So what are you working on right now? Never has there been a more loaded question with COVID.
No, a lot of things, as always, but no big deal. Just pivoting my entire business model during the coronavirus. So
easy.
Nice and easy. I sleep great at night. I'm not stressed or worried at all. So what we've done is, everybody watching, and as you know, we have physical tours of interesting architectural homes, collectors, oddities, people who love to collect every Happy Meal toy that has ever existed from McDonald's since 1982. And they have an entire room about that, right? And people buy a ticket, they get a map, they get a wristband, they go on these tours. And so our entire business model, much like restaurants and salons, museums, has just been absolutely upended. And so what we're really working on is like, great, if we're in an environment where we can only do that, in maybe one or two of the cities, or we have to keep pushing it out, or local public health officials say it's safe. A week later, it's not safe. 2 weeks later, it is safe. Well, do people feel safe, right? What is the actual community of people? We've just been trying to pivot and change that business model so we can survive.
So as someone who's been working that, as I'm sure, and I kind of say hope, but maybe I don't want that to be misinterpreted. I've talked a lot on some of these shows just about that, if you're just sitting back and waiting for business to just get totally back to normal, I don't know if and when that's going to happen. So
not going to happen.
Yeah, at least not for a while. And even then, it may never look the same. So my question is, what's that process been like for you? I mean, what are there any kind of like struggles or learnings, or what has that been like for you?
Yeah, it's interesting. I talk to people in grocery. I talk to people who are in fuels and like convenience stores, just a lot of like small business friends and people who work at big businesses. And, we think the world's going to take a long time to get back to normal. I think people are now doing curbside at grocery. And, my mom and dad, your mom learning Instagram is now like, I guess I have to download an app and schedule a time to pick up my groceries at H-E-B or Kroger or Albertsons. And you can imagine millions of people are doing that. And so I think there's a wholesale push for everyone to be more digitally connected. I think that's staying. I think that like the average guest of our tour is two demographics, right? And you've seen this data. Mm-hmm. It's like 50 plus, and then it's like 25 to 40.
Yep.
And the 50 plus are like, hey, I'm going to your website, but I had a question, right? On how to buy this ticket or what that looks like. And not all of them, of course, just like generalizations here. But now they're having to do that for grocery.
Yeah.
Now they're having to have their card activated because they don't want to touch the gas pump. And they do the near field communication, NFC, right? Or they do Apple Pay, which is the same type of mechanism, because people are worried about touching
That's
things.
An interesting thought, because I guess I had thought about that, but now that you've mentioned that, it kind of brings me to like this semi-forced learning and adapting of technology, right? So
That's
part
right.
of my Instagram 101 was, my mom had interest in Instagram, and I spent 3 weeks with her, and I did the exact marketing course that I'm now offering. And I actually have a video coming out with that next week. So I actually videoed that process of me with my mom to that piece. But I also spent some time teaching my dad how to use Zoom, which,
Right.
So anyways, I bring this up because it's like, not just thinking about, oh, I have to move my business there. Well, let's talk about this. Is the audience, are your customers now going to be more likely to live in those, to access you, to interact with you, to be on those places because they've become so maybe used to, or they become familiar with using Zoom now, using, those, again, the NFC, whatever the case may be, using technology tools that they weren't using before.
I believe it's a wholesale shift in human behavior, especially for, let's say, for the boomers, maybe for Generation X a little bit, right? Y and Z are fine, and they get it, but it is just a wholesale shift in human behavior. And so I think that you and I are used to ordering something on Amazon. It comes, it's fine. But even I'm like, okay, if I want groceries, I guess I'm downloading this app, which is not great, by the way, and scheduling time on curbside.
Yep.
And the company is now saying like, oh, crap, yeah, we haven't had to invest in curbside or grocery pickup or Uber Eats or Instacart. We thought that was over here. And now it's here affecting all the people, and people actually don't want to come and walk inside.
Or conversely, looking at the entire supply chain, right? Not only that, like maybe in this case, the grocery store, but let's also talk about the restaurant, right?
Yep.
The restaurant who maybe wasn't as invested, if you will, in delivery or takeout or Grubhub or paying that fee to, like those kinds of things, that all of a sudden has become, a necessity, and I think maybe a lifeline in some of those cases. It's been a shame living in a city in Austin, Texas, where we have so many, it's such a food-centric city.
Yeah.
And to see every week the restaurants that are closing down, it's sad. It
is. And, I feel that there's a wholesale change in human behavior. And those restaurants are the laggards on everything, right? They're like the last people to have a website, the last people to be on social media.
Yep.
They're like just now starting a YouTube channel so you can like cook at home. And now all of a sudden they just got punched in the face, right? And are like, oh my God, you know what? We should have our chef and we should have takeout meals. And we could probably charge a little bit more. And I know I paid a little bit more for my wife to have a little Mother's Day gift, like some tacos she loves from Suerte, and I went online.
I might also go out on a limb and say you've been very contributory to Suerte. I've been seeing the grams. Yes. I see all the. I know what Shelly likes now. I know
right now. Where's my loyalty card?
Right. Hey, Suerte, heads up.
And so for them especially. Again, hey, I'm happy to be a paid influencer if you're watching Suerte, let me know, is that we show up, we pop the trunk, they put it in the trunk, they hand you your bill through the window, no contact, touchless, right? And there's this idea of touchless commerce. There's this idea of contactless commerce, and not just like how you and I would like pay for a bill, but like how we dip our phone to pay, which is obviously everywhere but the United States. And then, I think people are just also going to think more about safety and cleanliness, using those online tools, and those restaurants that are getting crushed because they haven't invested in any of that. And the same for grocery stores, and they're all investing. And that's what we're doing now too, is like, trust me, we've invested a lot as a home tour in online, our presence, the social media beast that people like you help us feed and understand. But now we're like, doubling down on that, and trying to figure out like we need to survive by continuing to have physical events and people still come out. But like, how do you build on top of that?
And I would also say, I brought up before that now is as good a time as any to actually attempt to build out your business in a different way through potential partnerships, right? Like, the stronger, you're kind of, there's some metaphor there, which escapes me, but there's some Bible limerick. I don't know. There's something here about together we're better than alone.
Sure.
Hold on. Let me drink some more coffee.
there's like an ancient Chinese proverb there.
Okay, I got it. Actually, I got it. Okay. The 6 samurai brothers, they're each given a stick. And their father says, try to break the stick. And they'll go, oh, that's so easy. But then you put the 6 sticks together, David. They put them, they said, now try. Oh, they couldn't do it. There you go. You're welcome. I got it. Did
someone chat that to you, or did you just think of
that?
I
thought of that. It's in the Phil Jackson book, the 11 Rings, which I recommend. We're not talking about that. But you actually have a partnership. I don't know if you are allowed to or want to share it here, but talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So we've always had a great partnership with the Modern Home Tour. The Modern Home Tour has been great partners. It's MADS now, which is Modern Architecture and Design. So if you guys just Google Modern Home Tour, they're in a ton of cities. We're in a ton of cities. We're actually probably the only 2 national home tours that exist in the United States, which is crazy to think about. And so we just partnered together to do a guest comfort survey.
Wow.
Right? We designed like a 10-question survey to gather all this data and see what people expect in the new world. And we're still getting all that data back and figuring out, are we releasing it? Are we doing a press release? Are we like, what does that look like? And we just talked to people who bought tickets in the past, right?
Yeah.
So very focused on an existing set of customers, not random guy named Frank who's on our Twitter account.
Sure.
No offense, Frank. I know you're watching. You're typing in an angry note to me right now. Just send it my way.
I'm
like,
Frank.
There's a big difference. Exactly. He's writing a letter. There's a big difference. Mail it to Ross. He lives there. There's a big difference between that general audience and the people who actually have behavior and intent to purchase a ticket in the past and buy a new ticket. Yeah. So that's one thing. We're doing that kind of together. And then the other one, which I'm very excited, exclusive to this for sure, because I haven't talked to anyone else about it, is we're doing a partnership with Atlas Obscura. Ooh. So Ross, have you heard of Atlas Obscura in the past?
I have, but I listen, Feet to Fire, I don't know if I could like put my finger on exactly what they do.
Yeah.
I've heard the name. I know the brand, but full disclosure, I don't know exactly what they do.
So Atlas Obscura has an online community of about 1.3 million people who've built this collaborative, beautiful, amazing web community where people share interesting and wild and inspiring things from all over the planet. So you can imagine you go to Atlas Obscura, you type in Bulgaria,
sure.
and
which
someone has crowdsourced,
of course,
as one does, sure. Wakanda, Latvia, whatever. Sure. Type it in. Yep. 50 recommendations of what to go do in that country, and not like go visit the National Museum. It's more like, hey, did you know that the only medical cadaver museum in the world is in the capital of Bulgaria, and it's amazing and kitschy and interesting. And if you're a doctor, you'll appreciate it, but a normal person could go there and appreciate it too, right? And they curate all that, and they have one thing. They came out with a book that's like a best-selling book on Amazon and the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times a couple years ago. And people actually plan their vacations with this book, like going through these fascinating...
That makes sense. I always like the off the beaten path. I am a UNESCO guy. Right.
That's right.
I love a good UNESCO site. You know, I'd love by the end of my life to have visited many UNESCO sites. So I can appreciate that may be part of it, but I'm sure there's other stuff that's off the beaten path.
That's right. And they reached out to us probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 months ago. And we started talking about what a partnership would look like. How could we do Weird Homes Tour, Atlas Obscura collaboration? Kanye, Adidas, maybe we're not there yet in the collaborations, but like we're working our way there.
Sure.
And just said, in physical events, could we run tours in New York every weekend? Mm-hmm. Could we do something in New Orleans twice a month with an actual guide taking you to these different home tours? And then boom, COVID-19 hit. And sat down and had a great conversation with them to be like, okay, you know what? We're going to start with online. And so Brandon Hodge, who's amazing.
I know Mr. Brandon Hodge.
You know Brandon.
I do.
You should do 3 questions with Brandon, and I'm sure they would be fascinating.
I got to come up with 3 new questions for him. I'm not going to be able to go with the normal ones.
And he'll be our first one where you will buy a ticket on the Weird Homes Tour website or Atlas Obscura's website, and you'll get a link to a Zoom, and you'll spend an hour with Brandon as he goes through his collection of spiritualism items.
He's got cool stuff. He's got cool stuff.
Walkers, haunted objects from the 1890s.
Yeah, he's got cool stuff, man.
Amazing stuff.
Yeah.
And we're going to just keep that up until we get back to normal.
I love that because let me tell you, as someone, I like the off the beaten path stuff. I think I know some of my favorite vacation things have been smaller too. Not only just, they don't necessarily have to be like totally bizarre, but just smaller. Like for example, we went to Scotland and we did like a small bus tour, it was like 8 people. Like, and you know, you kind of leave from the same bus depot with the big buses. And I know we were able to go to places that others weren't. And, you know, I like that experience a lot. And there's nothing worse than doing like a search and like going to like TripAdvisor and being like, oh, top 10 places to visit in Edinburgh, the Bennigans. It's like, I don't, what are you doing to me here? You know, it's like, it's the worst. TripAdvisor will make me want to throw my computer out the window sometimes with that, where it's like top 10 places and it's like Applebee's. Okay. And then the putt golf course. And I'm like, what is this? Like, this is so lame. Okay. Exactly. We spent a lot of time on what you're working on. I now want to move to our second question. And here we go. So you have been going through a lot with your business, right?
Yeah.
How can you help someone, right? Or what advice do you have to someone out there that is looking for help or wanting even to get maybe more involved?
Yeah, I think I'll answer it on my business and then I'll talk just like personally in the world. But I think it's the right time to pivot, right? We're pivoting to have home tours every Saturday at 12 and 4 o'clock on Instagram. We're not charging tickets. That's free. What are we doing there? We're building our Instagram audience. We're asking people to donate and tip us. And then at least we have an email. We add that email to our email list, right? And so we're also splitting that money with the homeowners, because these homeowners are out there, we believe, still trying to do what they do, which is create art, collect things, raise money. And so we're helping split the money by doing these Instagram live things with them every Saturday at 12 and 4. I think it's just, so that's what we're kind of doing for the artists. They're also getting paid to do these online classes. We also just launched Weird Homes Tour TV, where you can actually go and rent a class. We're using Vimeo's over-the-top technology, OTT, and we're doing little 10-minute chunks of content that you can rent to learn something. It's actual educational content. And so that's also money that we're splitting with the homeowners. So these artists, these collectors, these architects, these folks who actually own and build these magnificent, beautiful, crazy homes that they live in and that are like the most private art gallery in the world that they share, are now just sharing that online. Wow. And they're getting paid for it.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, of course.
And so that's what we're doing for the artists and kind of the community. And then I think personally, you know, I mentor a lot of people. Ross and I have a great relationship in the past. He's no longer a mentee. He's learned it all. He's out flying.
I've learned it all, baby.
He's learned it all. He's teaching me things.
He had the higher ground, and I tried to get him. Cut me down.
And so I think mentoring is a big part of it. That's an intensive, at least with Ross it was. That's an intensive process. I'm kidding. No, that's an intense thing that requires a lot of hours and play. So if you don't want to do that, my other thing, which I think is great, which is maybe less of a commitment, but still is very powerful, is like I would challenge everyone who watches this now or 6 months from now. What are you doing around nonprofit service? How are you giving back? How are you volunteering? And for all the marketing and other people who watch the show, boards need you. Nonprofit boards need someone to kind of come in who gets a lot of online, physical, social, web, digital. Gosh, I can just log into your Google Analytics and tell you what's going on, or you
Yeah.
don't have anything on your website. So let me help you do that. And nothing complex in advance, but boards need smart marketing people to be a part of them and beyond them. And I'm on the board of the Multicultural Refugee Center. I'm kind of their e-commerce guy, which is great. I love doing that. I'm doing a 2-hour workshop for them next week to actually lead them through like a
Oh, that's
board
cool.
planning exercise, like a strategy exercise, because they're also pivoting. They're trying to figure out what they do and what that looks like.
Yeah.
So, for me, I would say a board service would be huge right now because there's tons of nonprofits that are hurting, just like all the other small businesses. So like you being able to come in and spend a couple hours a month and be a board member at a nonprofit here in Central Texas or wherever you live would be huge right now.
Yeah, and I think that, think about the struggles, again, like for businesses. I think those are compounded with nonprofits, particularly
Yeah.
nonprofits that I would even say rely on donations and volunteerism, right?
Yes.
Because, yeah,
Ab-
sure, you could say, I haven't loved, and I've been careful to be like, oh, now that you have more time on your hands. It's not
Not
really
true.
true. It's not
I have
true.
0 time.
It's not, yeah. So I've been careful with that because particularly those folks out there who have kids who are now trying to figure out how to homeschool them and the stress of their own job situation and life situation and things like that. So I've been hesitant to be like, oh, you got more time on your hands. Well, the reality
No.
is you do
Yeah.
have less. So those people
You
who
do.
were volunteering previously, they may not be able to do it anymore, and or the people who were previously donors, whether they were individuals or corporate or business, right? When I ran a nonprofit, a lot of the donations came from the small local businesses.
That's right. Not
So,
anymore.
and not anymore. So, I love that message. I think that, that is such a great way also for young entrepreneurs to
Yeah.
grow their network. So if you're out there and you're looking to start your business or you just started your business, it's such a great way to connect. And I would also say it's a really good way to kind of build up, I think, some of that confidence. If you can bring in some skill set that they really need, they should be appreciative.
Yeah, absolutely. And if they're not, then go find the next one, right? And
Yeah.
also, I would say just pick something you're passionate about. I believe with our current administration, immigration and refugees and the situation all around the world of people escaping those types of situations, and now our government like limiting them even being able to come here,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Is horrifying.
Yep.
And then also that's trickled down to like funding and grants and fundraising. So I know people like Multicultural Refugee Center where we actually hire women to do work, agricultural work, textile manufacturing, seamstressing, translation services.
Wow.
All of the kind of pillars of things we do are needed now more than ever, right? And I think you'll find you walk in and you're like, you know what? I'm really great at strategy, e-commerce, marketing. E-commerce translates to donations,
Sure.
how they think about their website.
Yep.
So all the people who watch all of your marketing stuff, Ross, are almost perfect candidates to number one, give back. Number two, have a specialty skill that's lacking at a lot of these boards, right? Because they just keep recruiting the same people over and over again. And then number three, to your point, which I think is fantastic, grow your network, right? You're probably on there with some president of a bank that you would normally never get to talk to, right? Or someone who's a vice president of corporate giving at an AMD, and you would never really normally get to talk to that person. And now you're bonded by this like shared board experience and fiscal responsibility and everything else you have when you join a nonprofit
Absolutely.
board.
I love that. I think that's a great way that our audience can think about ways that they can give back. And I don't say this selfishly. I say this realistically, like in a meaningful way, but also that can help your own business.
That's right.
Like I am a big pay it forward person. I am
Amen.
a big believer in that. And, I think that particularly when I started my journey, that was a huge part. However, I could, and I think there's a balance there. right? Of, if you're a creative entrepreneur, like, okay, you do have to be careful with your time and things like that. But I think that you figure that out as you go. And I think it is an important part of any new entrepreneur's journey should be doing a little bit of community work, right? To see again
Exactly.
what you're into. So that brings me to our third and final big question. All right. What should we be watching, listening to, or reading? And
All right.
this can be on a business front. This can be on a personal front. I will leave it to you.
I'm a couple things. I'm reading Misbehaving right now by Thaler, which is like behavioral economics,
Okay.
but done in a very interesting way. In this book, he talks a lot about, when we all think about the economy and economics, we think of like this perfect human being that only buys because like prices are low. And when things are good, they sell in the market or they buy more when it dips. And it's like, well, that's not actually human behavior. Human behavior is motivated by like millions of different things as to when you would buy or sell, or that, you'd rather get $5 off a product than 10%. And you actually do the math and 10% is more, but $5 actually sounds like it's
I'm
more
not
at
going to
the
lie.
time.
Even as a marketer, every time I do that, I'm like, let me think here. Which one
Right,
do I
right.
like? I literally did it this weekend with the Instagram 101 course, just with my wife.
Yes,
I'm just like,
totally.
okay, let me ask you, like, which one do you, that kind of thing. So I get that.
Should it be $9.99? Should it be just
Totally.
$9? So read that book for those folks out there who haven't read it. It's great. He just breaks that all down, like the human psychology behind economics. So that's my business
Okay.
side. I would say on the personal side, I recently just finally subscribed to the New York
Okay.
Times and get it every Sunday. Drink my coffee, read my New York
Do
Times like
you
I'm the
drink?
world's
Are you
oldest
in
newspaper.
an Ebenezer Scrooge like
Correct. Correct.
nightgown, or like Geppetto? I guess more like Geppetto, like a Geppetto and a
My
night.
pipe has
And you have a
bubbles
night.
that come
Yeah,
out of
yeah,
it because I don't
yeah, yeah,
smoke.
yeah, yeah. And you
Uh,
have a nightcap, and you okay. Just so we all can paint the picture properly. Okay.
Please paint the picture. And so, like the world's oldest New Yorker, I'm reading my New York Times, and I'm like drinking my coffee out of my. At least
Sure,
it's a Yeti mug.
sure.
Maybe is that
I mean,
cool with
sure.
the
I'll give
kids?
you. Yeah,
But subscribe, man. How much more do we need journalism in a time like
yeah,
this? I can't imagine.
yeah.
And so I'm proud to not only get like an amazing newspaper, but also support whatever all the stuff that they're up to as well. I think on the YouTube front, super into YouTube now with the one extra hour of time that I
It's
have
true.
a week.
Yes.
I feel not running all of the businesses
Uh-huh.
and the things. I am so into retro gaming right now. I'm
Oh,
like,
yeah. I
I don't
know.
believe in nostalgia. My wife
You're
says
not
I'm a
just a
robot.
watcher.
And
You're a player. Haven't you been sharing some stuff that you've been playing, some of the
trying,
retro games?
trying.
I
My,
know.
my wife says I have no emotions and I'm like a robot. But like one thing I get
What an
nostalgic about
endorsement.
is like
Suerte,
Super
he's
Nintendo.
still available for an influencer, an emotionalist robot who loves tacos. I mean, what more do you need?
Tacos, Sega Genesis, Nintendo, Super Nintendo, TurboGrafx.
There's an audience
And
there.
there's so many cool things on YouTube right now that are not just like,
There
hey, let
are.
me give you a 2-minute review of a game that you never heard about because it was only released in Thailand, but is this amazing game. And then there's also all of these amazing videos about like, hey, how do you do that yourself? And
Totally.
so I feel as a technical person, I'm super into Raspberry Pi right now and like
You
trying to figure
mentioned
out
this
how
on
to.
our podcast too, that you were tinkering with some stuff on that.
That's right,
Yeah.
exactly.
How's that coming
Um,
along?
it's good. I got it up and working. I like figured out all the scripts to install.
Okay.
In fact, I'm looking at like, well, what's the more powerful version of that? What could I do next? What
Uh-oh.
could I do
Are you
next?
going to be Miles Dyson? Are you going to be?
No,
Because if you
no,
are, I've been programmed to stop you.
no,
Oh, okay.
no, 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 no.
Okay.
I'm good. No artificial intelligence. Although there's some amazing single board computers you can actually do AI stuff on, but we won't get into that.
That's way outside
So
of my pay grade.
just retro gaming, my friend.
Yeah.
Retro gaming.
Okay.
And then the
have
last
I told
thing,
you? Hold on, before you move on.
Okay.
Have I told you about like my? It's not even. Whatever. That regards to retro gaming, the channel I absolutely love on YouTube and recommend that everyone subscribe to it. And you may already have Cinemassacre. It's the home of the Angry Video Game Nerd.
I've heard of the Angry Video Game Nerd.
Angry Video Game Nerd is my jam. And a little secret here. I've been trying for a long time. I really want to get him on one of my shows. I watched it. I have it on the background when I'm working. Like I'll have it on, like, I have a big monitor. So like I'll have like this part of the screen is his video. And then I'll be like editing video over here. Like I love it.
Is he super big? Why isn't he on the show? Is it Mr. Big Shot or what?
I mean, listen, he's got 3.2 million subscribers on YouTube.
But you're wrong.
I'll get out of here. I'm not even a blip on the radar, right? But here's the thing. My big thing I want to talk to him is that I feel like he was one of those accounts. He's been doing this for a long time, well before Twitch. And I'm curious on his input and feedback on this concept of video game, people watching people play video games. You know, like I feel like he was one of the early people doing something like this, you know? And so, you know, I do find it also interesting when we're talking about YouTube real quick, like there is so much good content on there. You're so right. And if you're just sitting there and using YouTube as when I work through clients on this on YouTube as a utility, that there's my generation and a little bit older, like only know YouTube as a place where, I'm going to upload a video and that's just where it goes. Like that's where I upload it and that's what I use. But you have to think about it as a social channel now, you know? Yes. And there is such amazing content there. You just got to dig a little bit.
It's crazy. So I'll send me that channel. I'll send you some. Okay. We should do like an official YouTube playlist swap.
Oh,
the other one that, you know, being a Halloween guy,
you are a Halloween guy.
and liking things a little spooky, a little dark. There's a channel called Dark 5.
Dark 5, okay.
Which is at times hilarious because the guy edits like the worst background clips. What's like stock footage? And you're like, that stock footage has nothing to do with what he's talking about, and you laugh at it. And then other times you're like, whoa, what? That's a crazy, weird conspiracy. Like, when did that happen? And like, this weird thing happened in the 70s with the CIA. And then you go and you're looking, you're like, oh, that's actually real. Like, what's going on here? So sometimes I can't tell if I'm like super into it or I'm just laughing at like stock footage of grandma's hand being like touched weirdly. And then the last one that my wife and I love to watch is called Everything is Terrible.
Okay.
Everything is Terrible. They just find like VHS tapes from like the 80s and 90s, and they just edit the crap out of them to be super weird, like a preacher edited into Tom Cruise, or, you know, grandma's workout video that was on cable access in 1990.
All right, this is a topic for another show, because I think we need to come prepared with more, and then because I love those two already.
The final thing I would say is just like on the book front, Ross, you talk about it. I recommend it to you. Just this kind of super interesting thriller about the multiple universe, quantum theory,
dark matter,
of like, of how do you run into yourself, who runs into yourself, who runs into yourself. So you tell me, what you think about it.
I thought it was really good, but this may walk people back from it. I thought it ended with a little bit of a whimper.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. And I kind of feel like they're leaving it open maybe for a second, or he's leaving it open for a second book. But I was like all jazzed up, all revved up. And then it's like,
Yes,
it
correct.
just ends, and I'm like, wait, that's it? Like, Damn it! Like, so the ride is a lot of fun. The ride is fun, but I do feel like it felt, it ended a little bit weak. But it's not terribly expensive. Again, it's called Dark Matter. Let me see if I can find it. I'll throw it in the comment or in the comments here on Amazon. So while I do that, go ahead.
And while Ross does that, just remember, everybody, there's another Ross in another universe right now
who loved the
all
book
up 30 minutes ago and didn't let me talk so much.
So
if you want to go see the shorter version, just jump to that multiverse.
There's another Ross who really loved the ending of that book.
Exactly.
So it did kind of blow my mind a little bit on that. So while I find that, why don't we end with how can people connect with you and with Weird Homes Tour?
Yeah, so weirdhomestour.com, at Weird Homes Tour on Instagram, where we're giving away free home tours every Saturday at 12 and 4 on Instagram. You can watch them live with our cool artists and collectors and architects. We'll soon be putting that on YouTube, so I would love if you guys go to the Weird Homes Tour YouTube page and subscribe. We'll start doing some live broadcasts and other more important video. Also, Ross is too old for this, but if you cool kids are out there on TikTok, we're also on TikTok.
How dare you? How dare you? I want you to know that I made a TikTok video, and it took me a whole God, this is where, as the digital marketing guy, I shouldn't be like totally showing my hand, right? But this is where I'm honest, right? This is where, like, first of all, your wife killing it on TikTok, right? So
yeah.
Anyway,
20,000 subscribers.
Just whatever, no big whoop. I love. Here's the thing, I absolutely love TikTok. I love it as a platform, and sometimes, as a digital marketer, it's okay, I think, just to enjoy a platform and not come on it as a digital marketer and frankly ruin it.
Amen.
I mean, honestly, like,
and then me. Oh no, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I have you up. I have your Twitter up here.
Just at Weird Homes Tour across the board on all the networks, and then we will be having physical tours. We're hoping to have our Austin tour in late June or July, where you actually buy a physical ticket and leave your coronavirus lockdown house and venture out into the public to see actual other people's homes, because you're probably sick of your home at this point. But we'll also be selling an online ticket, so you can actually stay at home and watch a local celebrity take you on a tour of the homes. Mm-hmm. And then, really personally, at Dave I Am on Twitter is the best place to get a hold of me, or find me on LinkedIn.
You find yourself tweeting a lot? Just out of curiosity. I'm not going to shame you.
I do. I tweet a lot about my day job. I tweet a lot about architecture.
You do. I enjoy those tweets.
And kind of design stuff as well.
Listen, I still feel like I like Twitter a lot. I don't know why I feel like I'm saying that like it's like I'm at an AA meeting, but I think people who've gone away from Twitter, they need to revisit it, because there's just, I don't know. I get in there and I have a lot of fun while I'm in there. I got to say that, but that's kind of one of the things, is like, Twitter is not a passive experience. That's the thing. To get the most out of Twitter, like, you got to be in it. You got to be in it to win it with Twitter. You can get wins on the other platforms. Not as good, not as much, not as great, but you can get wins on the other platform with being a little more passive. Twitter just ain't having it. Twitter ain't having it if you're passive. You got to be in it to win it. But I definitely enjoy it. So with that, it brings us to the end of 3 big questions. And I just want to say thank you so much for joining me again, because we did a podcast before. So if you want to learn more, even more about Weird Homes Tour, and really, I like that conversation because we delved a lot into kind of the deeper aspect, if you will, of Weird Homes Tour. And I think that's a really good story for entrepreneurs to hear and understand about, like, why you do it. You can check that out on the Tripod Podcast. I'll put a link in the comment here. Tripodpodcast.com, Weird Homes Tour. It's about 4 or 5 episodes back. but definitely check it out. And I want to say thank you so much, and I wish you all the best with all the Weird Homes tour stuff. I have a feeling I'll be riding along a little bit with you on some of that stuff, which I'm excited about. But yeah. I just want to lastly thank everyone for tuning in. I've really enjoyed doing this particular show, but also the series, 3 Big Questions. We'll see if we keep bringing it back. I'm always trying new things. So if you like it, hit the like button, hit me up in the comments. And as always, I encourage you to keep pedaling.